And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. It is April 16th. How did it get to be April 16th again? It was just like April 16th, just recently. But all is well here at 7 Hadley Street. All is well. We have cats. Most cats have been achieved. Even though Charbonneau now seems to believe that he lives over at the Millikins most of the time, he's here tonight with us. It's because I'm reading Edith Hamilton's mythology aloud to Betty Sue. She's down in Texas, and I read it out on the back porch, and Charbonneau and York enjoy listening to the stories of mythology. The one change that we are making in reading these mythology stories aloud is that instead of the Greeks, we say the capybaras, and instead of the Romans, we say the raccoons. It makes for very interesting reading, ladies and gentlemen. It makes for very interesting reading. Hi, Tony Hulick. Hi from Wisconsin. Hi, John Wilhelm. Hi, Betty Sue. Hi, Terry Hudson. Anyway, Charbonneau, come on, sure, join us. Here we have a Charbonneau, ladies and gentlemen. He will be sticking his butt in my face, I'm sure, sometime soon. Well, let's get going. Without further ado, we have a few people to thank. The liberal snowplowing do-gooders today were benefiting World Central Kitchen. That's a nice, non-controversial. When I think about who do we donate to, the law of unintended consequences is great amongst us, ladies and gentlemen. But I can't see anything wrong with giving people a sandwich. And that's what World Central Kitchen does. And so we give to them pretty often. And we thank you. And we thank you for all the people who get sandwiches. So today we have a few wonderful individuals to thank. First off, in Cincinnati, Ohio. In Cincinnati, Ohio, the estimable J.T. Mayer. Whoa, somewhere on the high seas, or maybe she's landed in East Hampton. Maybe she's in Liverpool. I can't keep track of her. I've just decided that Terry Hudson is everywhere. Terry Hudson is somewhere looking down upon us and smiling with lunar approval. Terry Hudson, thank you so much. Oh. Come on. Charbonneau, did you do something to this? Yeah. Very interesting. All right, in Saxon's River, we have Martha Rowley. Now, Martha Rowley gets 2 shout-outs from the Unidentified Unglet because she gave this week, and she also, I just discovered, I think I thanked her, but I never deposited the check. So from January, so be on the lookout for a check finally coming through, Martha Rowley. So thank you, Martha Rowley. And thank you, Martha Rowley. All right. Terry Hudson says English Channel. Well, what do you think this is? This isn't the Urdu channel. Good Lord. Come on, Charbs. Then we have out in Fulton, Missouri, taking a break from birthing lambs and going to see hot tuna. She saw hot tuna last night and said they were wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. They're wonderful, and they still are with us, amazingly. The wonderful, I just blanked her name, the wonderful Carol Fulkerson. Down there in Guilford, Vermont, where very strange things go on constantly. Down there in Guilford, Vermont, getting ready to head out to Wales and Scotland and Istanbul. The one, the only Sarah Ovenden. Out there in Wisconsin. My painter friend, Ms. Tony Hulick. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska. out there in Omaha, Nebraska, looking across the plains, looking to see where to travel next. He's got the wanderlust in him, my friends. He's got the wanderlust in him, as does Charbonneau, who is about to knock over. Oh, Charbonneau is trying to break into the catnip. You may hear some moving about of stuff. That is what is going on. Charbonneau breaking into the catnip. Out there in Omaha, Nebraska, trying to figure out where to travel next. The one, the only John Wilhelm. And out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there's very good news, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very good news. His beloved Pirates are 9 wins and only 7 losses. They're over 500. Good job. And he goes to the stadium. When he goes to the stadiums, ladies and gentlemen, Charbonneau, when he goes to the stadiums, ladies and gentlemen, small children start crying because they know they will be unable to catch any baseballs hit out into the bleachers where my very, very, very tall cousin sits, his glove at the ready, reaching and dashing the hopes and dreams of small children near him. My wonderful, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, and his excellent wife, Elise. Thank you all for joining us. Charbonneau, quit trying to break into the drugs. Oh, it's going to be a big mess, ladies and gentlemen, a big mess. Tonight's reading, and this is one of my favorites. This is one of my absolute favorites because I remember my dad reading it to us, and my dad would start laughing. And it bears being read annually. Hi, Sharps. Want to come up again? Paul Revere's Ride. How a modest go-getter did his bit for the Juneau Acid Bath Corporation. Following are the Following are the salesman's report sheets sent into the home office in New York City by Thaddeus Olin, agent for the Juneau Acid Bath Corporation. Mr. Olin had the New England Territory during the spring of 1775, and these report sheets are dated April 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th of that year. April 16th, 1775, Boston. Called on the following engravers this morning. Boston Engraving Company, E.H. Hustetter, Theodore Platney, Paul Revere, Benjamin B. Ashley, and Roger Durgin. Boston Engraving Company are all taken care of for their acid. E.H. Hustetter took 3 tins of acid number 4 on trial and renewed his old order of 7 queen spiders. Theodore Platney has gone out of business since the last trip. Paul Revere was not in. The man in his shop said that he was busy with some sort of local shindig. Said I might catch him in tomorrow morning. The Benjamin Ashley people said that they were satisfied with their present product and contemplated no change. Roger Durgin died last March. Things are pretty quiet in Boston right now. April 17th. Called on Boston Engraving people again to see if they might not want to try some daisy number 3. Mr. Lithgow was interested and said to come in tomorrow when Mr. Lithgow Sr. would be there. Paul Revere was not in. He had been in for a few minutes before the shop opened and had left word that he'd be up at Sam Adams's in case anyone wanted him. Went up to the Adams place, but the girl there said that Mr. Revere and Mr. Adams had gone over to Mr. Dawes's place over on Milk Street. Went to Dawes's place, but the man there said Dawes and Adams and Revere were in conference. There seems to be some sort of parade. There seems to be some sort of parade or something that they're getting up, something to do with the opening of the new footbridge to Cambridge, I believe. Things are pretty quiet here in Boston, except for the trade from the British fleet, which is out in the harbor. Spent the evening looking around in the coffee houses. Everyone here is cribbage crazy. All they seem to think about is cribbage. All they seem to think about is cribbage. April 18th. To the Boston Engraving Company, and saw Mr. Lithgow Sr. He seemed interested in the Daisy No. 3 acid and said to drop in again later in the week. Paul Revere was out. His assistant said that he knew that Mr. Revere was in need of a new batch of acid and had spoken to him about our Vulcan No. 2 and had said he might try some. I would have to see Mr. Revere personally, however, he said, as Mr. Revere makes all the purchases himself. He said he thought I could catch him over at the Dawes place. Tried the Dawes place, but they said that he and Mr. Revere had gone over to the livery stable on State Street. I went to the livery stable, but Revere had gone. They said he'd engaged a horse for tonight for some sort of entertainment he's taking part in. The hostler said he heard Mr. Revere say to Mr. Dawes they might as well go up to the North Church and see if everything was all set. So I gather it's a church entertainment. I followed them up to the North. Church, but there was nobody there except for the caretaker, who said he thought I could catch Mr. Revere over in Charlestown late that night. He described him to me so that I'd know him and said that he probably would be on horseback. As it seemed to me to be pretty important that we land that Revere order for Vulcan No. 2, I figured out that whatever inconvenience it might cause me to go over to Charlestown or whatever added expense to the firm, it would be justified. I spent the afternoon visiting several printing establishments, but none of them do any engraving. Things are pretty quiet here in Boston. Went over to Charlestown after supper and hung around the Bell in Hand Tavern looking for Mr. Revere. Met a man there who used to live in Peapack, New Jersey, and we got to talking about what a funny name for a town that was. Another man said that in Massachusetts there was actually a place called Podunk up near Worcester. We had some very good cheese, and we talked over names of towns for a while. Then the second man, the one who knew about Podunk, said he had to go as he had a date with a fella. After he had left, I happened to bring the conversation around to the fact that I was waiting for Mr. Paul Revere, and the first man told me that I'd been talking to him for half an hour and that he'd just gone. I rushed to the corner, but the man who keeps the watering trough there said that someone answering Mr. Revere's description had just galloped off on a horse in the direction of Medford. Well, this just made me determined to land that order for Juneau Acid Bath Corporation or die in the attempt. So I hired a horse at the tavern stable and I started off toward Medford. Just before I hit Medford, I saw a man standing out in his nightshirt in front of his house looking up the road. I asked him if he'd seen anybody who looked like Mr. Revere. He seemed pretty sore and said that he, he, he seemed pretty sore and said that some crazy coot had just ridden by, knocked at his door, and yelled something that he couldn't understand, and that if he caught him, it'd break his neck. From his description of the horse, I gathered that Mr. Revere was the man, so I galloped on. A lot of people in Medford town were up and standing in front of their houses, cursing like the one I had just seen. Seems that Mr. Revere had gone along the roadside, knocking on doors, yelling something which nobody understood, and then galloping on again. Some goddamn drunk, said one of the Medfordites, and they all went back to bed. I was not going to be cheated out of my order now, no matter what happened. And I don't think that Mr. Revere could have been drunk because, while he was with us at the Bell in Hand, he only had 4 short ales. He did have a lot of cheese, though. Something seemed to have been the matter with him, however, because in every town that I rode through, I found people just getting back to bed after having been aroused up out of their sleep by a mysterious rider. I didn't tell them that it was Mr. Revere, or that it was probably some stunt to do with their shindig that he and Mr. Dawes were putting on for the North Church. I figured out it was just a little publicity stunt. Finally, just as I got into Lexington, I saw my man getting off his horse at a house right alongside the green. I rushed up and I caught him just as he was going in. I introduced myself and I told him that I represented the Juno Acid Bath Corporation of New York City, and I asked him if he could give me a few minutes of his time, as I'd been following him all the way from Charlestown and had been to his office 3 days in succession. He said he was kind of busy at that moment, but if I wanted to come along with him upstairs, he could talk some business on the way. He asked me if I wasn't the man that he'd been talking to at the Bell in Hand, and I said yes, and I asked him how Podunk was. Well, this got him in a good humor, and he said that we might as well sit down then and there, and he would get someone else to do what he had to do. So he called a manservant, told him to go right upstairs, wake up Mr. Hancock and Mr. Adams, and tell them to get up and no fooling. Keep after them, he said. Don't let them roll over and go to sleep again. It's very important. So we sat down in the living room, and I got out our statement of sales for 1774, and I showed him that in the face of increased competition, Juno had practically doubled its output. There must be some reason for an acid outselling its competitors 3-1, I said. And that reason, Mr. Revere, is that a Juno product is a guaranteed product. He asked me about the extra 6 pence at 10, and I asked him if he'd rather pay a 6 pence less and get an inferior grade of acid, and he said no. So I finally landed an order of 3 dozen tins of Vulcan No. 2 and a dozen jars of Acme silver polish, as Mr. Revere is a silversmith on the side. Took a look around Lexington before I went back to Boston, but I didn't see any engraving plants. Lexington is pretty quiet right now. Respectfully submitted, Thaddeus Olin. Attached, expense voucher, Juno Acid Bath Corporation, New York City. Thaddeus Olin, agent. Hotel in Boston, 15 shillings. Stage fare, 30 shillings. Meals, 4 days, 28 shillings. Entertaining prospects, £3, 4 shillings. Horse rent, Charlestown to Lexington and return, £2, 6 shillings. Total expense, £9, 3 shillings. To profit on 3 dozen tins of Vulcan No. 2, 18 shillings. And 1 dozen jars of Acme silver polish, 4 shillings. £1, 2 shillings. Net loss, £8, 15 shillings. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Thank you for listening to Paul Revere's ride. It's a joy reading to you. Have a wonderful day of the shot heard round the world by the rude bridge that arched the flood. We'll see you sometime soon. I'm not sure if I'll do a Benchley night next week. I'll be down seeing the great Betty Sue. So take good care. We'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.